welcome to this meeting of the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education for Wednesday, April 12th at 6 p.m. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Please call the roll.
Dito?
Here.
Eliason?
Here.
Garner?
Here.
Herzog?
Here.
Lemberger?
Here.
Saginaw?
Here.
Wiedenhoft?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening we will be led by two students from Carl Traeger Elementary, Tristan Johankbeck and Isabella Cartwright. Would you please step forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Appreciation for your meeting us. As I often say, because the board meeting can be rather lengthy and boring, or rather
Thank you.
Next, board recognition for national board certifications.
Yes, this evening, and I know we have at least one or two. Do we have all the candidates then? So, for recognition of national board certification. And would you like to proceed?
First off, I just definitely want to recognize we have many fabulous teachers in our Oshkosh Area School District. And I would definitely think that these three educators sitting before me fit into that category. This December, they achieved national board certification. With that, I know that I've given some background knowledge regarding the national board certification. It's quite an in-depth process. There are 10 portions of that assessment, who are done with portfolio, where they really look at the whole teaching learning cycle, where our students, where do we need them to be with the benchmarks, how do we get them there, and then that assessment, how do we know when they're there. Along with those 4 portfolio, they did take 6 portions of assessment at a secured assessment center, and really that portion of it really assessed their content knowledge as well as their pedagogy. So I'm proud to present. We have 3. One thing that makes Oshkosh very unique is after looking at the data, we are, I would say, out of the Fox Valley, we are right up there at the top. If I look at the numbers with Appleton, they have 7. Green Bay, we have 15. Kimberly, 12. Fond du Lac, 8. Kaukauna, 2. And Neenah Menasha both have 3. So it definitely puts us on the map a little bit there. I'm going to go ahead and present them. First, we have Jackie Cooper, who is a kindergarten teacher at Franklin. Next, we have Lisa Shagru, and she teaches middle school at Carl Traeger Middle School. And we have Tara Perry, who is our 3rd grade teacher at Merrill. And I'm going to invite them to share a little bit about the process, the rigor and relevance behind it, but really holistically how it comes back and how it impacts student achievement. Lisa, you want to start?
Okay, I get to start us off. National board certification is definitely something that we should be promoting and encouraging in the Oshkosh Area School District. And one reason is that it really helps you focus in on the area that you actually teach. When I got my reading master's, at the end of it, I was certified to teach kindergarten through 12th grade reading. Where when I'm working on my national boards, I focused in on, I teach 7th grade literacy, I focused in on English language arts, early adolescence. So I really got to dig into what's developmentally appropriate for kids that age. And another reason that it should be promoted is that it really makes you take a look at if you're a well-rounded teacher. You have to know your content area in depth. You have to know how to plan lessons. You have to know how to keep all the kids engaged. They're looking for that in those videos. You have to be able to manage a classroom easily. And it isn't just the classroom stuff, it's the outside of the classroom stuff too. What kinds of things do you do as an educator to promote your school and to continue learning? And are you a trainer of trainers, that kind of thing? So nothing but good things can come out of promoting this process for kids.
I think for my part of it, after going through the process, before when you would plan, it was you look at the benchmarks and you plan and you make sure you're hitting everything. Whereas now, you look at the benchmarks and it's more than that. It's where are your kids at now? It's a lot more differentiated instruction. How are you going to get them where they need to be? And instead of just looking at them as a grade in the grade book with benchmarks associated to them, it's how can you impact their lives in general? How can you make them be not just a better learner, but a better person? And I think that's a huge reason why we need to promote having national board certification in Oshkosh, because that's what we want for our students. We want the best for them. We don't just want them to be the best student. We want them to be the best person.
One other thing I just wanted to comment, with us going to the Danielson model, I was very excited to see that because many of the components that are in the national board are directly impacted in the Danielson model, which we're working with teachers, all teachers in the Oshkosh area school district. So that was a celebration in itself, seeing that as a way of evaluating our teachers and really taking that as an opportunity to do professional development and really impacting those areas that makes the greatest change within our district. And again, I just want to emphasize we have so many awesome teachers here in Oshkosh, and our scores are definitely evidence of it, and I appreciate your time to celebrate just 3 of those teachers that are impacting student achievement. So thank you. If you wouldn't mind joining me in a round of applause for these teachers.
We still haven't heard from the third one.
Or Jackie. All right. I said I was more comfortable speaking amongst a group of kindergarten children than at a board meeting, but okay. I don't have a whole lot more to add than what the other 2 teachers have said, but I guess I will say it is something that's always in the back of my mind, the process that I went through, thinking about and reflecting on me as a teacher. I'm in kindergarten and in the early childhood, I had to consider how I would integrate the arts with social studies teaching and how I would integrate science with my mathematical teaching. So I'm constantly thinking about that now as I make my lesson plans and plan. And when Trina mentioned the Danielson model, and our principal had shared that with me, with our whole staff, I read through that and I went right to her and I said, this is all reflective on what I had to go through with the national board. So it's a rigorous process.
For sure.
Julie, how many do we have other national boards certified in the district? Do you have that number?
We have 19, like I said, which really puts us on the map for the Fox Valley. When I reflected on the top 5 of the state, obviously some of those bigger Madison, Milwaukee areas have higher numbers, but the 5th one was Sheboygan area with 29. And I thought to myself, I wonder where we rank with 19 if Sheboygan is the 5th out of the whole state with 29. So definitely growing those numbers and just the impact that all teachers make on students and just taking it one step further with that reflection process. It's a great achievement, so congratulations to the district.
I would just like to add that this accreditation is similar to in the medical profession for having national accreditation in a specialty area, and this is simply an outstanding effort. I can tell you from my experience in the district that even 2,000 students larger than this one, the percentage and numbers of teachers with national board certification is far higher than suburban Minneapolis, and yet that was a goal that we had set and provided incentives for teachers to do so, and that's an outstanding accomplishment, and parents should be excited about having their children in any one of our 19, including our 3 new inductees into this process, because we know they're getting the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, next we have board administrators, board administrative reports. For the president's report, I have one item, and that is that we received notice from the WASB of a vacancy and in Region 7 caused by the untimely death of Miss Mary Jansen, and they are seeking names from us for nominations for the interim position. If any of you were interested in being on the Region 7, or I should say, if any of you are interested in being board members for WASB, there's an opening for Region 7, which is our region. So let me know, and I would gladly recommend any one of you for that position. Sorry, next. Oh, do you want? Sorry, you want to do the superintendent's first, or did you want to do?
Yes, I have suggested to the board president that to avoid duplication, and I don't like to ever steal students' thunder on reports, that I think we might want to, at this meeting, always have Emma and David be able to present first, and then I will skip through any duplicate slides so we don't redo.
So we would start with Ms. Shook.
So just a little look back at the past month. We'd recently started the Spartan Spotlight, it's called. 39 students have been chosen to be in the Spartan Spotlight. Teachers will submit students' names that they think should be recognized for their work ethic, overcoming obstacles, and compassion towards others. These students are going to receive a gift certificate and a Subway gift card, and it's something that we kind of look for now that it's all started, and then the teachers will just submit it as the time goes on, basically, and we applaud those students very much. The Most Happy Fella, congratulations to the cast. It was a magnificent musical if any of you got to go see it. Congratulations to them, and they're very hardworking. They've been going at it for probably the past 2 or 3 months, and it just turned out to be a really great show. iPads for Autism was the Northwest game last week, and they had raised enough money to buy 10 iPads, which is awesome. And then we have some of our basketball players that got to wear the shirts. Some community students and the dance team was also provided shirts to wear as well. Congratulations to Zach Zengel and Max Miller on their commitment to play football for Winona State University. They had signed this last week. And will be playing there in the fall. Congratulations to our FBLA members. Matt Luft and Austin Jansen took first in management decision making. Rebecca Knurr and Erica Colabana took first in banking and financial systems. And Spencer Steeps took first place in personal finance, and they will be competing in the state competition April 7th and 8th. What's to come? We have our winter band concert February 20th at 7:30 in North Auditorium. Sasquatch Days, which is kind of just a week to break up the winter months, the winter blues that everybody's going through. We have Spirit Day set up. Monday is Comfy Day. Tuesday is Mix and Match. Wednesday will be Jersey Day, and then Thursday is Spiffy Spartan Thursday. And Friday we are doing Olympic colors because it's like in the Olympics right now. And then Sasquatch Shuffle will be the Saturday after, so February 22nd. Winter sports will be kicking off sectional events. And Skills USA will attend regionals February 27th and 28th at UW Stout. And District Solo Ensemble Festival will be at North this year, March 1st.
And also West has a lot of similar things going on. To start off, really, just like the the kind of third quarter blues that we have, like Emma said, we have a thing called Snow Blast. And basically what Snow Blast is it kind of lights up the semester with fun-filled activities that allow students to enjoy basically these hosted events. The activities consisted of ice bowling, log toss, our famous sled race, and our dress-up days. So we got an hour-long lunch, which for those who didn't even participate, they even got to go along with their friends and hit a couple of fast food restaurants around town, especially with the new Quick Trip that opened west. Definitely, that was the hot spot, free coffee and everything else. It was swarming in school. Also, what this consisted of is we had many different teams. These could be like AP, like U.S. history team, and you can have a lot of different things. Or it can be a bunch of your friends. So you had 10 total people, 5 guys and 5 girls, and 1 staff member. Also, you get a bonus if you have an administrator. And basically, basically you get to do a lot of these different things. And I would like to stress also that our sled race is huge because we have Garbage Hill right by Oshkosh West, and a lot of different contraptions show up. I remember my freshman year when we didn't even have snow, which seems almost impossible, but that year we did. I took like an iMac box and we went down the hill. So as you can see, even a kid with the American flag repping right there, it's just a blast. To go along with that, we also had homecoming too. This was hosted by the intramurals department, and it was last Saturday at West. So this is another like celebration, and this is more informal than homecoming one, but yet it still allowed for more participation to come. It was a mid-year break, and it had a lot of student involvement. We had Beats to Go, our DJing service that we hired, and it was definitely something to look forward to. I had a lot of my friends go, and I'm pretty sure everybody loved that. Also, we had FBLA members going to state. The top 3 of categories goes to state with Logan Myers, RJ Durr, and Cullen Boyle. They did a piece on sports entertainment. Lindsay Sweeting, Christy Bry did global business, and Katrina Schiedmeyer did an impromptu speaking. So congratulations to those students. Also, we had the Children of Eden musical that was actually put on by Mr. Berenson. And I know many months went into this and hard work ethic, because I would even like go by the music department because I have solo ensemble coming up, and it was just vigorous morning practice, and they put on a phenomenal performance. I went to go see it, and they had excellent stage, pit, and a huge set with Mr. Singer actually directing the pit. Along with that, when I was trying to practice, it was just like a bunch of kids in the pit, and it was definitely a professional production. We also have a blood drive. This is going on February 14th and the 18th. This is student government's role, and it's something that we put on that have delicious food available. So for any students that want to eat some donuts or Domino's pizzas, you have that to look forward to. We have outstanding student turnout. We actually send out an email to all the students that can register online. So it's really cool because we can look at the statistics to see how much food should we order for them, and basically the day of we'll have a Chromebook set up where students can log in and such, but we can actually get a number to actually plan with how much we want via Google. Moreover, we have spring athletics starting: track, baseball, softball, boys tennis, boys golf, and girls soccer. The student government agenda, we have broken up into different committee tasks as we have a lot to do. And now what you just heard was the blood drive committee. They're responsible for doing all this planning, getting the numbers, and really calling in festival and getting all these orders placed. We also have a constitutional committee, which we have a constitution, but we'd like to revise it and make it much more defined. Our government actually hosted an event in Appleton this fall, and we got connections with a different high school that actually has like a 9-page constitution, so we would actually like to see what they're doing and try and incorporate it with ours. We have the elections committee, which will do all the planning and the counting and the dates for when elections are held and putting together the packets for actually promoting it. We have the student outreach committee, which is going to be very, very helpful because we are now on all 3 social medias, Twitter, Google, and Facebook. And with Facebook, we can do different polls to see feedback of what students do or don't like. And we can basically get an outreach of making physical signs around the school and getting the word out about whatever we really need. We also have a West weighted GPA committee, which we'd like to try and influence a weighted GPA because lately we've seen a rise in the UW and AP classes, and more people are actually getting more things to deal with. So a lot of people have come up to me, and I think it was almost necessary to put this committee together to try and influence and gather some information on what we can do to actually get the idea of a weighted GPA started. We're looking also at, this is actually an event that we're looking for. We took a vote this Tuesday, and we want to do a Madison conference, which we were invited to and paid for. And basically what this is it's our student government going down to Madison for a night. And there's many different things that can come out of that. I think even who we're going through actually reserved the capital for mock trials and different things, so that's going to be definitely something that we're looking forward to. We also have a MORP committee that we are going to set up the dance for the freshmen and sophomores, so that's yet another dance to look forward to. We love dances at West, so it's great. And I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity of a lifetime to connect with the community here. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. At this point, I guess we will go on then to Mr. Mack and the superintendent's report.
Well, I'm glad that we had the two of you go first because I could full back 7 pages here that I didn't to, and it's much more respectful for first-hand reporters than third-party reporters to deal with this. Carl Traeger Middle School students learn about teamwork. Students in Melanie Jungmer's Family and Consumer Science Teamwork class recently designed and created these amazing cakes as part of a unit focusing on teamwork. Students were in charge of designing, creating their cakes in teams of 4 or 5. They also worked on applying both the newfound teamwork skills as well as their cake decorating skills. They've been learning to design these fantastic creations. It was a great experience to be able to bring the skills of cake decorating as it was, and a real bonus of getting decorated cakes with the fun team of classmates per J.C. Morgan, 8th grade student in the Family Consumer Science class. Tipler students committing to excellence, and in the science class our students have been studying classification, learning about the 6 kingdoms. We dove deeper into bacteria and viruses and learned their characteristics. Students completed a lab with different stations. Students had the opportunity to use microscopes to look closer at bacteria and created wanted posters to help catch viruses. Students in Mr. Megles and Mrs. Tauschers and Mrs. Tritt's 5th grade class were directed to write and produce and perform the school announcements at Oakwood School, and now they're into television production of school announcements. Smith Elementary Spirit Week. During the week of January 27th, Smith Elementary held their annual Spirit Week. This tradition supports the conscious discipline work of creating a school family. Some of the daily activities include wearing Smith colors, decorating classroom doors, and everybody counts, wear a number jersey, catch a good book, reading time, dress-alike day, and PJs and bedhead day. Spirit Week concluded with spiffy clothes and an all-school dance. Smith has chosen to receive complimentary dance and participate in the annual Coats for Kids drive. Very active school activity. Mark your calendars. The Oshkosh Recreation Department and the Jolly Jesters Children's Theater presents the Nifty 50s. Some of us can remember them. A musical comedy tribute to the 1950s that will have the audience laughing and cheering. The Nifty 50s, directed by Tracy Chalek, will be presented on February 21st at 7 p.m. and February 22nd at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And February 23rd at 2 p.m. in the Alberta Kimball Auditorium. Tickets for all performances are available at the ORD office at 427 Vision Street at the door. The ticket prices are $4 and $2 for students and senior citizens. Adult tickets may be reduced by $3 with a donation from a non-perishable canned item. The 2014 marks the 50th anniversary of the Recreation Department program in Oshkosh, and there are 97 OASD students participating in this production in grades 1 through 8. It will be interesting to see how children of the 20,000 teens react to the 1950s. What a contrast. Roosevelt students learn about community service. Roosevelt Elementary partnered with UW Oshkosh Optimist Club to decorate styrofoam cups for the community warming shelter. The cups were then taken to the warming shelter and served with hot chocolate. It was a great experience for the students and a great way to work together to serve the community. Washington students collected pennies and supplies. The Washington School Student Council headed up a penny drive for day-by-day warming shelter in Oshkosh. They raised $200 and collected a large box of supplies for the shelter. I'm not sure that the two North students in the poetry got into the report, Emma, but I will try to cover that one as well. The two students from Oshkosh North High School had the honor of having their poetry published in February 2014 issue of Teen Link magazine, an international publication that reaches millions of teens nationwide. Teen Link is published by a nonprofit organization, the Young Authors Foundation. Both poems were written by Christine Hargis, spring 2013 grade writing class. Please take the time to congratulate Vivian Sundis, a current Oshkosh North High School junior, on her poem, Irresistible Sundays. A poem can be found either in print or can be ordered from the website. And in addition, Brandy Batalski, a senior at Oshkosh North, also has a poem published in February 14th issue. Her poem, The Language of Music, can be found here as well. Green Meadow Elementary staff, Media Center News, Lights, Camera, Action are now playing at Great Book. Get your tickets and all the books checked out for your local school library. Ms. Foskey has all the exciting hits, and I noticed that some of those treats even made it over to the front desk by the coffee here in the district office. Being aware of flying pancakes. On Tuesday, February 4th, the Washington School Partnership hosted a fine family night featuring Uncle Pancake, serving flying pancakes to school families. This is one connection with All School Reading Incentive Program. One school, one book. All families received a copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with a reading schedule to promote reading at home. Fun was had by all, and not too many pancakes were dropped on the floor. I would have you know that I caught 3 for 3. So that was, but you really had to watch before you started that process to know how to dive for those.
Was that with or without syrup?
That was without syrup. That was hot off the griddle. So. Oshkosh West student has selected as candidate for the United States Presidential Scholars Program. Daphne Thompson was selected as a candidate for the United States Presidential Scholar Program. This program was started in 1964 by executive order of the President to recognize and honor some of the nation's most distinguished graduating seniors. In 1979, the program was expanded to recognize students who demonstrate exceptional scholarship and talent in the visual, creative, and performing arts. Annually, up to 141 students are actually named to the U.S. Presidential Scholars, one of the nation's highest honors for high school students. The scholars represent excellence in education and the promise of greatness in young people. For students to be eligible for the selection, They must complete application materials and be chosen as one of the 560 semifinalists. These applications then move to the White House Commission on Presidential Scholars for final selection of the 141 recipients who will be honored in June in Washington, D.C. At Jacob Shapiro, students learning about staying active. Students and staff from Jacob Shapiro, along with the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh volunteers, participated in a winter walk to school day. This event was changed to winter walk in school day before the morning bell rang due to cold temperatures. The messages of volunteers shared was important to stay active even during winter months. The volunteers also promoted the school literacy goal by sharing winter book articles with each other in classrooms during the morning. The last item is simply we had covered all of those, including the signed letter of intent, and the superintendent's calendar would be the last item. Emma and David had covered each of those articles, and we continue to be very busy with lots of activity, including spending a fair amount of time talking about the Oshkosh referendum. That completes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Other reports from board members? Right. Seeing none, we will go on to update on the strategic compensation design team progress report. Mr. Nault. Actually, it's Nault, Moser, Brown, and Schnorr.
Good evening. First of all, I want to make a connection between the strategic plan and our work. Once again, the strategic plan, priority number 1, support and recognize the value of our quality teachers by all community members. And then action step B, develop a database model to compensate professional educators for the quality effectiveness to start in September 2014. And that may be a little bit ambitious. We'll have to see where we end up with that. The district selected Battelle for Kids to guide us in this endeavor, and we had Tom Griffith as our consultant. The exec team held 10 conference calls with Tom, and what Tom was looking for was what is the culture in the Oshkosh School District, what structures are in place in the Oshkosh School District, and what strengths does the Oshkosh School District have. And after those conference calls, Tom came away with that we have a very collaborative culture. We have structures in place to enhance learning and build capacity in our teachers. And one of our major strengths is our professional development going on in this district. From there, we comprise the Explore and Design team. And the Explore and Design team has 23 members. Of the 23 members, 15 are educators, teachers in our district. And we have elementary, middle, high pupil services and instructional support teachers. We also have 7 administrators on that team. And 7 administrators, we have 4 of us from the central office and 3 building principals, 1 from the elementary, middle, and high school level. And we also have 1 board member, and that's Mr. Eliason, that's joined us. The Explore and Design team met with Tom Griffith for 3 full days and then 2 early evenings. And on day 1, we explored teacher salary systems from Cleveland, Ohio, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Putnam County, Tennessee, Waukesha, Wisconsin, and Nashville. On day 2, we explored Eagle County, Colorado, Montgomery County, Maryland, Perrysburg, Ohio, Fort Worth, Texas, and Falls Creek, Wisconsin. Out of day 1 and day 2, Perrysburg, Ohio, and Falls Creek, Wisconsin gained some traction due to the professional development component that they had in their salary system going forward. Some reasons varied as to why the others didn't gain any momentum with us, and one of the reasons was that for some of those districts, they had to pay for a performance component only, and we decided here with our committee that pay for performance was not a good fit for us at this time. We have started with the Charlotte Danielson framework as a tool for teacher evaluation and teacher growth. And Charlotte Danielson's framework was never intended to be a tool for pay for performance. The other thing that research told us, and we were a little concerned about, was the fact that if we went for a pay-for-performance system, we may go from a collaborative culture to maybe a competitive culture. The other thing that we noticed with some of the school districts was that their system was very, very cumbersome and difficult to manage, and we already feel like we have full-time jobs, and to maybe or even hire staff to manage it was not something that would be feasible. So the team at the end of the day decided that Oshkosh would best be served by a system that would contain a significant professional development component, and that professional development component would be aligned to the district's initiatives and the district's goals. Whereby in the past the professional growth that teachers would do, we had basically very little control over, and so that was one of the significant pieces there. The belief that we have is that we hire teacher talent, we grow that teacher talent through professional development, and once we grow that talent, they become quality educators, and the quality educators provide quality instruction, and ultimately that increases student achievement. On the third day, we split into 3 groups. We had the schools group, the business group, and the salary structure group. The school group examined teacher salary systems from Ripon, Appleton, Falls Creek, and Perrysburg, Ohio. And the reason that they studied these 4 districts was because these 4 districts had a significant component of professional development in their salary system. The business team, led by Mr. Eliason, shared a couple of very successful businesses in terms of employee satisfaction and productivity. The salary structure team, led by Sue, constructed a schedule that addressed our salary, basically our salary deficit in the first 4 years in our salary system. At the end of the day, at the end of the third day, it was obvious that the Appleton model gained some serious traction with us. And it gained this traction because they also were reinforcing professional development up there. And once again, the key to that professional development was that it was aligned with the district's initiative and goals. And Appleton's been working on their system for 1.5 years right now, and they intend to implement in the fall, which would be almost a 2-year period of study, research, and development. So we're attempting to create a professional salary system that weighs heavily on professional development, addresses our attrition in the first 5 or so years, has a financial vision to it, is fairly easy to understand and manage. It's affordable and competitive within the state and Fox Valley. It's financially sustainable into the future and over time, and it attracts, recruits, and retains quality staff. The design team will be meeting again on February 25th and March 6th for a couple hours in the evening, and that won't be the end of our work, but that's our schedule going forward. So that's, anybody have anything to add to that? That's pretty much where we've been and where we're going.
So at this point, I guess you're looking at, you said the Appleton model gained some traction.
Mm-hmm.
What the compensation model then that is currently being sought, I guess, is what? What's the basic? I mean, has there been? Have you boiled it down to something that?
No, I wouldn't say we've boiled it down to anything, but we're seriously considering and really want to do something with professional development, upon which it's aligned to our initiatives and our goals, upon which that we recognize that and we reward that financially.
Okay, so when the group met and you had the 3 different groups that were looking at 3 different possibilities, what, I guess, did you extract something from each group, or did you pick a group and say this is the one, or I mean, what developed from those 3 groups?
Well, each group shared out,
right?
And at the end of the sharing, I don't know, Steve, can you elaborate a little bit on maybe where we went relative to the business piece? When we shared out relative to the 4 school districts that we looked at, We shied away from Perrysburg, Ohio, because they also had a pay for performance component with the staff development. Appleton seemed to align with our philosophies and what we were conceptualizing. And the salary structure piece, once again, Sue developed something that was addressing that deficit in the first 5 years to help us retain those groups. But Steve, can you comment at all to the business piece of it?
Yes, you're throwing the gauntlet down here, Mike. It's an enormous challenge, right? Because we've had these really good conversations over these day-long sessions and other sessions, and we could have those conversations as long as there are calendar years, right? Because the question is, what's effective in the business world? What's effective in the world of education, or not-for-profit, or healthcare, whatever, fill in the blank. I don't mean to be elusive. It's a real conundrum, though. Which of those principles that work really effectively? For example, two of the Milwaukee firms I interviewed to draw experience from, remarkably successful firms, right? Remarkably happy employees, remarkably profitable. I gather, I wasn't privy to the financials, but firms that have been around a long time and winning awards and winning workplace awards. So the question becomes, which of those principles can we apply here, and which is applicable? And though we've started that conversation, and though I think there are principles that we can incorporate here, overlaying with an existing educational, this world that we're in, it remains elusive. And I don't mean to just sort of kill the conversation there, but I think I think there is a call for a long, thorough conversation, sort of top to bottom, about what we do and why we do it and how we recruit and who we retain, and this big picture. That's the sort of ongoing call for big, deep conversations about this stuff in sort of a broad way, I think is really necessary. And that's not at all to diminish what's been done, because I feel like the process worked very well, and we've uncovered some good principles to guide the conversation. But I think there are other pieces out there that haven't had that same focus that would be germane to the conversation.
What became of we were all interviewed in December with regard to what the board would be willing to vote in favor of. What became of those different interviews, and what you extracted from them?
Well, the intent of that was to like you said, Matt, to gain insight as to where the board members were relative to their philosophy on a teacher compensation system, and it varied. It varied from this, and when I say that, I guess I think most people refer to their particular situation. If you're in education, you're more familiar with what the education does. If you're in private industry or you're something, you're more familiar with what that group does. We just, I don't know if we gained any insight as to anything that provided us with serious direction, but it just gave us some insight as to where you are as a board, I guess.
Now that we've picked the model and it's Appleton, what is Battelle for Kids going to do in terms of helping us create the compensation model?
At this point in time, they're going to continue to help us with communication as we go forward, some communication pieces.
Are they helping us determine how to attract, retain, incentivize all of the challenges that you've laid out? I assume we hired them to help us now craft the system. So is that what they're doing?
Actually, what they did was they led us through a number of those pieces with all those different districts and over those 3 days. Where we're at now is that we as a team now, when we say we're looking at the Appleton model, we're looking at it as a framework to create maybe the Oshkosh model out of that. So
is Battelle for Kids done, or are they going to help us craft that?
as far as that goes, they're not done, but they're not going to be actively engaged in it, I guess.
So
I'd
their
say.
purpose
They're-
was just to get us the models that we could look at.
Yeah, get us as far as we, as
Okay.
far as we came,
Okay.
you know?
And you have to keep in mind that Battelle was able to access nationwide all the different models and the plethora of research and models that they were able to supply and really let us, to dig into. And it does seem counterintuitive that, we did all this research and then we come back and we are looking at something that's just a little bit north of us. But they did the same type of research over the last year and a half, and by having Battelle, we accelerated through that research phase because they were really able to diagnose and say, they asked us really key questions about where are you as a district, and then really focusing in on the different components and research and the different models that we see nationwide. And I don't think we would have been able to do that, or the hours that it would have taken to be able to do that without the assistance from Battelle for Kids.
Okay, thank you.
Steve?
I guess my question centers around the professional development concept. When you're talking about professional development, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it sounded like you guys were going to essentially set up parameters within Central of what we value as a school district, and then we would gear our professional development in that down those parameters, correct? So it's not just all out, it's more focused. It should lead to greater value for our district and for the kids, obviously, as well as the educators. Are we tying in anything in longevity in there, or looking at that? If we're going to be offering professional development or having it part of a compensation package, and this would tie into the retention attraction concept, if we slam all this professional development in there in the first year or two, what's to say that that teacher won't leave and go to a different district and have all this professional development under their belt? Or would this be something that we tie in for longevity? Like with that survey we took, obviously most of the educators that we've lost over the last whatever that was, 2009 or
Since
something.
2008.
Was the first 5 years is when they were leaving.
Right. We haven't talked longevity at all, Steve. I'm not sure we're going to go down the road of longevity. And the professional development is not something that's just going to be heavy in the first few years. It's something that we want to have throughout. We want lifelong learning.
Okay.
We want career educators that are going to grow throughout their career. We want to develop a plan that doesn't cause somebody to grow professionally for maybe a dozen years and then stop growing, So I don't know if that helps answer your question.
It does. It gives me a better grasp of what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this. And it sounds like a workable, if you're going to sustain this development in the future, you're going to get a long-term reward, as will your educators, because they're going to be constantly learning new techniques and new things to enrich themselves as well as the students.
Right.
Are we hoping that we can at least launch this in a pilot phase this fall?
Well,
A simple yes
Yeah.
would be cool.
Yeah. Well, just reflecting on, we keep kind of bringing up Appleton. Appleton did a semi-pilot phase this
Okay.
year where they incorporated certain pieces to determine how that would go, and working through any of the glitches that would come up, that would be the unexpected or unintended consequences that they didn't see coming. So whether we go in that angle for a while, or whether we're just not far enough along
Okay.
to make that decision, to be able to give you a definitive answer on that.
If we do decide to run with some sort of a pilot, would it be better to do it with new hire educators, or would it be better to do it with long-term educators as we try to work out some of the bugs on this, as far as like with the compensation and with the development?
My quick thinking on that would be is that from where we're at right now would be we'd probably try to do it with all educators.
Okay.
And not emphasize one area or another.
Steve?
If I can add, Steve, I think that the very question you bring up there is sort of this big picture where we need to have, there are so many possible facets and prongs to this. For example, as what always with me as we're going through this process is, our professionals came to teaching in a given sort of understanding and framework, right? And I think to the degree that it serves all of us well, we should respect that intent at the initiation of one's career path, right? So, for example, I want to be very careful here that I'm not kind of wildly speculating about, but one could say, should we have a radically different model if the body of evidence suggests a radically different model for a pilot school or hires after a given date, or how do we roll it out and to whom and how do we assess? And there are some big questions there. So I would probably, perhaps like Mr. Nolt, I don't mean to speak for, but I think it's more important that we be cautious and right about it than quick. I've also, in addition to the business models, had conversations with teaching staff in and out of district and administrators in and out of district. And the path is fraught with peril, right? And I think at the same time, you hear from at least some number of teaching staff that let's have a wildly different model, that there are those who would be very attracted to that. So you have all these moving pieces, and you think, well, a lot is in the rollout, and how we do that and how we measure that.
Are you satisfied with the committee and the progress that it's making?
I think the work to date has been sort of on par with what it should have been, this exploratory phase, lots of data, and I'd have to say the body of work that was passed on from Battelle was really helpful and insightful. That said, when I look at the business models, the advertising agency that I interviewed and the architectural firm, I mean, they're pretty stunning firms, right? When the homepage and the website is, aside from the great architecture we do, or the great profit margins we earn, or the mayor's award for whatever, we're a great place to work. We're 10 years in a row the best mid-sized firm to work for, right? Or an ad agency that says we are Sloan Award winner and right on down the list of great workplace. I think that's what I want us to be. Great district, and when you've landed here, you hit the jackpot. I'm not sure that we're on track on the current trajectory to get there. I mean, I hope we will. And I think if we massage collectively, if we keep moving ahead, we can get there. But as I say, I think much more thorough, exhaustive, broad-ranging, maybe wildly speculative conversations would be helpful to that end. And I don't want to go on forever, but hearing from some of those people who've really done remarkable stuff in the workplace would be really helpful.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. We go on to our first workshop for this evening, Summer School Program Plan. Junko Jacobs, Linda, Parent.
You are correct. Kim, do you have it? Oh, sorry, Junko. I'm sending around copies of the PowerPoint presentation so you have it in front of you.
We did want to say, first of all, that we're both new to the summer school supervision and the program, so we are just learning about how we budget and looking at numbers and how it impacts our budget. We did a little more research today, so the document you got yesterday in your packet has a few different numbers, which we're going to change that document before you would actually vote on it. So a little disclaimer there. Go ahead, Junko.
Just to start off by letting you know, we made our decision on which buildings to use for summer school based on several factors. One, we wanted to make sure that we provided a good learning environment for the students by providing all air-conditioned sites, including in Northside Elementary School. We wanted to provide busing for all elementary students from their home schools to the sites, as well as the YMCA downtown, YMCA 20th Street, and the Boys and Girls Club. We also wanted to make sure that we included one meal at least for each site. and we wanted to maximize building facilities to combine whenever possible. So this year you'll see on the bottom, the elementary schools that we are going to use will be Jefferson, Oaklawn, and Traeger for the elementary students, and then have middle school and high school both be at North.
We wanted to add that that North location really was not up for negotiation with our wonderful Jackie Schleicher over there. We lobbied, we looked at the free and reduced rate and where we wanted to where we needed to be for all of our kids to get meals, and we were just approaching that 48 or 49% mark. We lobbied the state to be able to get free and reduced for that whole population that will attend at North, 2 meals.
Yep. So breakfast and lunch will be served free at Jefferson, Oaklawn, and North. And the North site will include the high schoolers as well. So they'll get all free meals. And those are also public sites, so they'll be open to the public. So anybody that lives in the area can also come to those buildings to eat as well for free if you're under the age of 18, and for adults they can eat at the regular rates. As far as Traeger goes, because they don't meet the free and reduced rate, the students that go there will either need to pay for their meals if they're a regular paying student, or if they're free and reduced, they would pay their free and reduced rate. But at Traeger, we are only offering lunch because we found last year our numbers were just not there to support having breakfast and lunch. I think we had, and the staff. So we worked with Peggy West to do that.
So we want to thank Jackie and her wonderful custodial staff for everything they'll be doing on behalf of students at that North building this summer.
As far as the dates for summer school, even though the middle school is at the high school, they will still follow the same dates as the K-5 classes. So they will have 16 days. They will go Monday through Thursday, beginning June 23rd. They'll have the week of the 4th off, and then they'll go 3 more weeks, ending on July 24th. No school on Fridays, and then they'll have 16 days. As far as the 9th through 12th graders, they have 15 days per session, and they will start on June 16th. They'll go to July 7th with no class on the 4th, and then they'll start again for the session 2, starting July 8th, and go to the 28th.
What's the just for my own edification, I guess, what's the reason for the difference in the dates?
High school is credit, based on credit and credit hours that you need, and
they need to have a certain number of hours to be met in order to gain those credits. So that's why they have to start a little bit sooner than us.
Which is a dilemma with the snow days and the times. So we marched into Stan's office and looked for guidance along with Pete Cernhaus, because you know that we will be in school and teachers will be in their classrooms on the 13th, and we are very worried about the undue stress of people coming in and out.
Yep, and being able to get the materials to the sites that they need to, especially for those K-8 classes, we wanted to make sure that we had them. High school being at North, they should have the materials in the classrooms already so that they can access those materials and still be able to start on time on the 16th. For the high school, they're offering something new this year. They will be offering the basic credit recovery core classes. They'll also be offering the enrichment classes, but they are also allowed to take an E-Academy class as well. Students can sign up for one E-Academy class throughout the course of the summer. The E-Academy session starts June 16th and goes the full time, and they will end on the 28th. But that's all done over the internet. So that is something new that we're offering at the high school level.
And then I wanted to add for ESY at the high school level, those of you who have had the glory of going to the Wildcat Cafe, which our special needs population runs, we are going to be morphing that into a Spartan Cafe at the north side and hoping to work with staff and maintain that opportunity for our 18 to 21 kiddos to come to our schools and work. And if you've been there Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays, it's a glorious thing that our kids are doing, and you should go there and purchase a coffee or a tea one morning.
Last year we had started for those newcomer ELL kids that are refugee families that speak very little English. We started a language immersion program for those students that will be held at the Boys and Girls Club again this year. There's 2 different classes. One is a K2 class and the other one is a 3-6 class. They strictly focus on the English vocabulary, language development, academics, but they also get some of those activities of daily living practice as well. They learn how to cook. They try new foods and try new activities that they've never been exposed to before. And it was a huge success last year. We had, I want to say, about 15 kids total that were enrolled in those 2 classes, and they made good bonds. Unfortunately, some of those kids moved on to other areas, but they had shared a lot of pictures and things with me as well for the success of that program and made good relationships with their teachers as well. So we're going to continue that again.
You want me to go next?
Sure.
Students who score below the proficient levels on the WKCE or our district benchmarks, which correlate to the Common Core, will be strongly encouraged to enroll in our summer school programs. You already did E-Academy. You want to talk about online registration?
Yep, we're still doing online registration for the K-8 classes again this year. We will have all of the computer labs open on parent-teacher conferences in all of the buildings. However, those families that don't have computer access or need help with family access to set up their online registration can come to Jefferson and Roosevelt, where we'll have staff there to help them get registered as well. We are projecting to have our staffing requests to you in April, and registration will start March 10th and go through the 31st for the K-8 classes. If there's, after registration closes, principals feel that they still have some kids that they are recommending for summer school, they can still do that via phone and contact myself or Terry Sell to get those kids registered. And high school registration will start March 17th. But information will be coming out to families in the next few weeks.
And JUNCO implemented an online application process for teachers and paras, which has been really nice to look at that shared document. In terms of ESY or extended school year, you have to qualify for that as a special education student showing regression, and it has to be documented. And I think you know when Kim was in my position, we looked to reduce some of the ESY because we provide many opportunities for co-teaching and peer role models and some of those services other than just being in a special ed classroom. So we reviewed those applications, and it's less, again, when we look at those numbers, I don't know how many total.
I think we had about 20.
We approved, but those that are on the borderline, we're calling the parents and saying, you know, your child should really be in a co-taught class. They can get that extra literacy or math with a small group, a special ed and a regular ed teacher, and also some of those classes will have some para support. Even I know we have a visually impaired student that the parent wanted homebound, and I talked to them today and I said, we can help with busing, or we should just have your child at the school because of the other opportunities that are there. And if you only want to participate in a 2-hour class, you can always provide the transportation. So she was receptive to that.
Tentative class assignments or course sign-ups will be out to parents by May 2nd. And we're planning on having lead teachers meet with their staff by the end of May, so right around May 20th. If you look at these numbers, these are the numbers for the last 3 years for student enrollment for the 4K through 5th grade class. The getting ready for kindergarten, as you look towards 2013, you'll see that some of the numbers were down, and we feel that that was related to several things. The possible causes for that could be the fact that we had some split schools last year. We didn't have a Northside school, so we had to bus the Northside kids to Jefferson and Tipler, and Jefferson was only able to hold students that were in grades K through 2. We did 3 through 5. Actually 3 through 8 at Tipler. There were some families that were concerned that their children would not be in the same building, and they decided to not enroll them because of that fact. So we had a few concerns for that. We also had busing that was splitting up the same reasons for that. Another reason we thought that the numbers might have been down was due to the fact that Perry Tipler and Traeger last year also required the meals to be paid for, like I had explained earlier. In the past, we've always had it at a school that they had free breakfast and free lunches. So we tried to remedy that this year by having classes on the north side at Oak Lawn, and then free meals at Jefferson as well, and then north.
Can I stop you?
Sure.
So I'm just quickly looking through. They decreased in every single one of these course titles except For special interest.
Yep, special
So-
interest was up a little bit, so we had
What
offered.
are we doing this year?
We had offered more classes last year for the special interest groups, and we are continuing those same classes again this year,
Okay.
in hopes that we can have them. We actually tried to offer more of a variety at each of the buildings and kind of equal it out.
Okay.
So that way there's equal a number of opportunities for those students at each building.
And Allison, I also suggested that we contact like the Park and Rec Department or the
Yes.
community to find out if in those years there have been more offerings in the community. And I don't know what that looks like, but when we compiled the information, it's very telling, and I would like to know what families are doing if they're not coming here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we do
that's-
plan
I
to
mean-
talk about that at Elko, and
Okay.
yeah, that's on our radar.
Okay, good. Thanks.
The biggest factor, I think, is that we will have is Oaklawn will be, I think, a big draw for a lot of those Northside families.
It's exciting.
An exciting thing too is they have that green room at Oaklawn, and we have a couple tech classes
Special
there
interest.
that I put there so that way we can get some enrollment in those classes.
Okay, great, thanks.
If you look at high school, they were a little bit down for the high school credit recovery, but a little bit up for the enrichment classes. We're hoping that that'll go up with the offer of the E Academy as well. This is the piece on the budget pack that looks a little bit different. This is the most accurate picture of the budget financial impact that we have on the district. As you look across, you'll see that the allowable revenue per FTE for students has increased over the last 3 years. However, the equalization aid, which is the money that we get from the state, has gone down every year.
Significantly reduced.
Significantly reduced. As far as our revenue that, we're trying to keep, we can't really control the revenue a whole lot because of the equalization aid, but expenditures.
But we're happy to have a profit.
Yeah. And expenditures,
plus.
we're trying to, there should be some reduction in the expenditures a little bit because busing was quite a bit more last year than it should be this year because we're not busing as across town for those classes as well. So that should, and those are projected numbers for this summer. So still making a profit, hopefully bigger than that, but we won't know that until we get the numbers back at the end of the summer school. And it does cross 2 fiscal years, so it's kind of hard to know until we're actually done. Nope, that's the last one.
Questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm very happy to see the summer school report with its inclusionary focus in terms of children who come from families with free and reduced lunch. I live on what I call the flight line. That is a neighborhood where I see parents walking their children to the closest neighborhood school, which is 2 blocks from my home. I know there's another north side school where walking is the prevalent way to get to school with not only the children but the parents and the younger siblings. So I'm very happy to see this component of busing. I think it should be a great draw. That plus the buildings you've chosen, which are among the newest buildings in the district and the most climate friendly for all children, regardless of whether they're special ed or not. So, and the meals, I think, should be helpful because we know from looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs that if we address those physical needs, the physical conditions of the buildings being amenable to learning, plus we're feeding these children and families again, that this should help, and you're providing the busing. So I commend you for this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on our workshop list is the school calendar for 2014-15. Mike Knoll, Julie Mosier, Kim Brown.
School calendar, 14-15. Do you want a hard copy to look at, or you can pull it up in your?
You've got a copy.
Okay. Very good. Well, this calendar has our 100. Good to go. This calendar has our 190 professional staff days, our contract days, same as last year, of course.
Excuse me, Mike. Do you have some hard copies?
Yes, I do.
Our 2 student representatives could use them. Thank you.
Thank you.
So once again, this calendar has our 190 teacher contract days, 180 student instruction days, of course. We built in 4 inclement weather days. Imagine that. 12 hours of parent-teacher conference across the board, all levels, so it's equitable. Open house at the middle and elementary 1.5, and at the secondary 1.5 for the freshman orientation. Early release, 8 a year except November. We had the traditional 1 week of spring break right after Good Friday, and a survey indicated that about a year ago that was desirable. Of course, we started for September 1, as dictated by law. And we had a committee, as you could see in the staffing report, a committee that had a diverse committee of people that constructed the calendars. So we had a new look last year, as you're well aware. And the interesting thing is the new look came from Appleton via Fond du Lac to Oshkosh. So it's kind of how these things go. But one of the things that we did with this calendar is we took the Saturdays and Sundays off it because it just seemed cluttered with some of that. We have the one calendar for both students and staff, and that worked out well for 13-14. So any questions, any thoughts?
I just have one question. The October 24th, that was typically, why did we get that one off? I don't remember. Was that the teacher conference
That was the
thing?
teacher convention weekend.
Okay.
And I think that teacher convention weekend went away or whatever, but
Right.
and that they don't even offer it anymore through WEAC.
Okay.
But our teachers had probably a psychological desire to continue to have that one weekend, and we booked it in now the last 2 years.
And I would also say that the year that we did not have that 3-day weekend in there, we heard from students, families, and from teachers. I mean, it was across the board that we at that point in time they needed a break.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else, Barb?
Just 2 comments. On the April spring break, when you say a traditional 1 week, I think it would be more accurate. I would find it more accurate if you would call that a 6-day break because it's actually the Friday before. It's not 5 days off from school, but 6. And then the other one is just a question, I guess, of curiosity. The December holiday break, the winter break, with students coming on a Monday and a Tuesday, the week of December 22nd, and then coming back. I guess they don't come back until the 5th.
January
Never mind.
5th,
Have you gotten any feedback on students coming on the 22nd, 23rd? I know this year it was a longer break.
Yeah. Well, here's the difficult piece. Let's just say that we had the 22nd and 23rd as off days, because you cannot start student instruction days until September 2nd. That would push us into June 11, 12.
Yeah.
Or we would take Allison's 24th off the map.
It's not. Oh no. Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry. Okay.
It's the only question, my friend.
Sorry.
It's not my day.
I
I like it. All the days off.
The date that you referred to, then,
Steve made me do it.
the point being is that it's so tight, and you don't want to, going beyond the second week of June. I don't know, So
Well, I don't have a problem with it.
But that's why.
But I just wondered if you'd gotten feedback from parents or
Committee.
students, like our good high school students here. If they have any reaction to that, would they rather be in school on the 22nd and 23rd, but come back on the 1st and 2nd of January, for example? I don't know.
Well, we couldn't come back on the 1st because the 1st would.
Oh, I'm
is
sorry, that's a
considered-
holiday.
Right,
We would
right.
get into all
And
kinds
so
of trouble.
then
Never
you
mind.
would come back on the Friday the 2nd. This school year, we did come back on the Thursday and the Friday.
I remember that.
And then we had probably 2 days off because of cold weather.
Because of weather, right.
Okay.
I think that with Monday, Tuesday, like coming back on a Thursday and Friday was kind of like a drag almost, just because like it was 2 days. So I think that having it on a Monday and Tuesday will benefit better than having it on a Thursday, Friday coming back, just because it's an easier transition too.
Thank you. Anything else? If seeing none, we'll come back on the 26th then to have it formally approved, and then we'll distribute it.
Thank you.
And I think it's very wise, based on our experience, that we expand to a fourth makeup day, since we consumed all of ours this year already. So.
You guys will still be in school.
All right, number 3 on the list is Southside Solution. Stan, Sue, and Randy.
It's like my brother's, he's finishing college this year, and my sister's just
I would just begin by, we attached to the staff report what Allison read at last month's meeting that summarized the issues that we had been discussed in December, January regarding exploring some issues with the Southside Solution that really certainly focuses on looking at how can we resolve what is right now 2 separate locations for students, those kindergarten through 3rd grade at the Lakeside site, and then the 4 sections, 4th and 5th grade, attending at the Tipler building as Green Meadow, which has gone on for a number of years. And the Southside Solution, I can recall actually in May of 2012 during my initial interview with the board, the discussion of Southside Solution as being an issue, and it continues to be there. The effort that we are asking the board to discuss with us the direction to move ahead with this, if it's the desire, and we would certainly honor the board's prescription as to timing and when to move ahead with that. I know we have a number of Lakeside parents and staff also present in the audience this evening, concerned about our continuing to potentially move on that. To summarize, we were in a position to explore and go back to work that had been done in 2008, 2009, that designed a much larger, expansive potential addition with to the Lakeside School with Bray Architects, and pull that up. Randy has worked on kind of getting a schematic of possible other solutions that could be done with a much more limited budget that would have 4 to 6 classrooms potentially there, and with the ability to expand that, and to also being careful that at this stage that we make no conditions or commitments to anyone pending the board action and direction on do we wish to proceed with this. And again, fundamentally, the issue has rested with looking at a project that could be completed by September of 2015 and would need to be financed by using fund balance pending the receiving of allocation of tax increment financing refunds back from the city of Oshkosh. And the good news today is that we received information that has some additional dollars relating to it. That sets the stage, and I'm going to now turn it over to Sue and Randy to kind of lead us through the information that they've been gathering on it. But we have been basically awaiting this workshop to get direction from the board as to at what pace or when we should proceed. So, Sue?
Stan received information from the city updating the anticipated revenue from the TIF, and granted it's still too early because, well, one is coming I think within this next year, but the other one probably isn't coming from a year down the road from that, so it's still just a projection, but it's a much more updated projection. So between the two of them, we're looking at $2.4 million. And Randy did work with Myron to update the schematic from 2008 or 2009. We don't have a cost estimate on that yet, just simply because we wanted to have your input before we spent a whole lot of time and effort and resources on getting cost estimates.
Right, and I've met with Bray and talked to Myron. Bray and I did a walkthrough of the building, and they're putting together, and I've stressed to them it's only a conceptual plan. And once Myron gets that, they'll be able to put some pricing to it. We need to find out from the board what direction they want to go, how much they want to put into this, how much room. I feel we got to sit down with Amy Ashton, the principal for out there, and our team, and sit down and make sure that we're covering all our bases to make this a school that can help out that community out there and get the community back as one.
The last parallel issue that we are moving with to get a community sense on the growth was presented to the PTO on Monday night. I understand, and other than I think things were fine with the survey. I'm always into inclusiveness because of the issue. One of the pieces of feedback is it did not include the Green Meadow name into the process, and I think there are some folks on the west side of 41 that would find a discussion of the survey that only exclusively talk Lakeside. It should be Lakeside Green Meadow survey, and we'll be providing that feedback, and they're prepared to have that ready to go. I understand that a plan is in place for a send home on the survey for those students currently enrolled, and then a plan to do telephone survey for those who are not presently enrolled at Lakeside. So that progress is underway, and I think we have that parallel activity. That will certainly affirm, I'm sure, the need for a two-section school. It could surprise us all of a sudden and say, could we retrain that? Would there be enough interest for a three-section school in that area if we would gather all those who have either chosen to not enroll, separate out to enroll in other districts and the like as part of the activities. But I think we've got some positive momentum going there with the Lakeside community and the Green Meadow community to get try to find resolution to what is an open wound for the last 5 years.
I think some of the data Randy's collected shows that if all those Green Meadow kids come there and it's just a two-track school, it's full already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll pretty much be a capacity doing and I think that's possibly only doing a K-5 and not a pre-4-5.
Yeah, and the issue there is that if having a school that would be a 4K for that distance and coming into the city, even if there were centralized 4K, I think there are some definite advantages for a school out in the community to have a full 4K option. And again, it's the issue of the first introduction to schools. I view that 4K program as just the ultimate of the positive introduction to our school services to parents and coming into our school district for the first time.
Have you gotten anywhere, Randy, at all with design concepts at all? Any concept at all?
They put together a conceptual drawing for us, which would be adding approximately 6 classrooms, and with the potential of being able to add onto it at a later date, but going up with it. Structurally, they make it sound enough so they could put a second level on it. But again, I think we need to sit down and make sure we're getting everything into the school that the community needs out there for the Green Meadow Lakeside group.
And what the preliminary pieces look at creating a courtyard, as it were, on the north side of the building so as not to block view of from any of the existing classrooms, and then have that addition connected by a hallway that then would house additional classrooms as proposed, but also basically creating a structure that would allow for another duplicate set of classrooms on the second floor, if the numbers would justify that in the future.
No, on the north side, though, isn't that going to completely almost eliminate the parking lot?
That'll take care of a lot of the parking lot. We would have to do something for parking and also for bus drop-off and pickup, which I think would make, we could design something a little better and more safety conscious than what we are out there right now. Okay. The design we're put together as conceptual design was also a design that we could add a firewall in there and not have to sprinkle both sides, the old section of the building also, that we could probably get by with that, with just a firewall in there. And it also keep the daylight in the classrooms that are in that courtyard.
On the design that you have, does it incorporate, obviously, a new heating plant's going to be needed?
New heating plant I'm looking at also for the entire building, for the old and the new. Right now, we've got 2 boiler plants out there. One's an old steam boiler, and the other is also old hot water boiler in the other section. But they're both in need of replacement, and we just have to size it. They did include a mechanical room here up on a mezzanine also for adding to become more centralized for a new mechanical room for the boiler plant.
No, could we not use energy exemption bonds to purchase that, so that would not be part of the construction cost?
I'm looking at
correct?
possibly being able to use energy exemption bonds for the boiler project, for any energy efficient renovations in the old section of the building, such as windows and doors, upgrading any of that stuff. I'm also looking into if there's an option for us for a cost savings of adding fiber out there and be able to put that under the energy efficiency also, because we could eliminate some of the cable charges and things like that. So I'm looking into that now. I met yesterday, in fact, and we discussed it amongst other boiler projects we had ongoing on, but I was meeting with McKinstry, so we had that on the agenda also, and we're working on that. But that's what we're hoping to do.
Would this preliminary plan address enlarging common areas such as the media center?
The drawing that they've done now wouldn't. The old drawings from 2008 had added a larger cafeteria. Some of the issues, if you go to a 3-track school, is going to be that you're going to have to probably add a cafeteria, and also possibly, the gym is fairly small. Think about adding a gym on it. So go from a 2-track to 3-track, there's a lot more to look at for some of those other common areas.
And would your plan also include enlarging the principal's office, which is about the size of a postage stamp? She didn't ask me to say that.
In the drawings in the 2008 conceptual drawings that they did back then, they did enlarge. Part of it was a renovation of that area also. So there again comes into what we can do with what we got for TIF funds, and also what we've got for energy efficiency tax dollar funds, and what falls under the energy efficiency dollars that I can use towards that.
All of our discussions that Sue and Randy have had, and I've had, and in the communication I've dealt with parents and staff, and Amy as principal, have always focused on what could we do within the availability of TIF funds, because of limitations of trying to market another bond issue referendum, and trying to deal with it within that framework, first of all, and with this unique opportunity of funds that are one-time only funds, that it's a wise potential reinvestment of really deferred taxpayer dollars that have been held in abeyance for us for that period of time. So each of those issues in an ideal situation would be the perfect solution, and to maximize the use of those available dollars would be a good direction, because location-wise and serving the southern part of the school district and stabilizing that population, both for the immediate neighborhood but the overall southern part of the school district, is really the critical issue. That is, I have spent enough time, and we, in fact, one of our guests this evening at listening hour also spoke on behalf of that issue of the fact of trying to get closure to that issue to stabilize the population for the school at that location. And these over the course of now the year and a half, I've gotten to know these folks very well and understand their commitment to wanting their school to be complete. And it's no diss to how Jay Jones and staff are supporting folks at Green Meadow at Tipler, but the issue is that it's a distance between the children's experiences there and the staff experiences being one school. So that the motivations are very clear, and the message is very clear. The issue is really getting direction from the board as to should we proceed with planning and direction or additional information. And I had requested, and Sue had requested from the city, an update of this information, and getting from Mark Roloff today the latest information that they have on these TIF payoffs is really helpful to have us have a better idea to proceed. Several people have asked the question, would it be possible? You just remember that 2 years ago, the first week of April, the community approved the action relating to Oaklawn School, and although there were conceptual frameworks as part of the marketing plan for that, they were certainly not architectural drawings in the process. We're not too far off from those kind of concepts that were conceptual at that time, that we witnessed the rapid work that with groundbreaking in October and occupancy in August of a very good school at Oaklawn. And so it is possible. The issue is taking the calculated risk regarding the financing. That is really the issue at question.
Steve?
One of the things that I like about this, and we keep coming back to the financing of this, and I guess for me, I'm seeing it, being there, without going to referendum. If we remove the Green Meadows students and make them whole over there again with Lakeside, I would assume that that's going to lower some transportation costs, because right now, currently, that is a rural group that is being bussed into the west side. So one would speculate that that would probably lower some of our transportation costs. That being said, that's going to open up 80 seats in Tipler. And of course, then if we were to sit there and maybe collapse some of our 4K and move it over there to a more secure facility, because right now we don't have the security that we do in our buildings with the cameras and locked doors.
We do for 4Ks.
Not on every facility.
They're working on it right now, if I'm not wrong. Most of the 4Ks have gotten there.
Well, that's
the ones that aren't hosted in our district, though, right?
The one
in our district buildings?
I don't know, Amy and Kim would have to answer that, but most of the 4Ks have either done it or are currently working on it now.
That's good.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we're still paying, my point is, going back to the financials, we're still paying rent to those buildings where we could eliminate that rent and put
We're not
these.
paying rent, we're just subsidizing, we're paying per student, right, Kim? Or Amy? Yeah, so we're not.
We're not paying.
That we
rent
wouldn't
at
have to
any
pay us.
facility. Okay, I stand corrected on that.
Well, no, I mean, this is still a stipend there.
It's a stipend per student that they can then use if they would like for rent, or they can use it to pay for teachers or whatever. But it's not necessarily, we are not physically paying the rent. We are paying.
But we
stipend
wouldn't
per
pay
student.
that if they were in-house, is what he's saying. That would go away if they were
Well,
in-house.
We would still pay.
Yes.
We would still have to pay for the.
Well, they're nodding their heads yes, I guess.
Right, we wouldn't be paying those facilities, but we would be paid for the teacher.
Okay.
It seems to me it would be more efficient to have them all together in one. That's what we're always talking about.
That would save eventually transportation costs and the like, yes.
Also, I mean, we have the 150,000 roughly right now for the sale of Green Meadow. And I could see using that for redistricting purposes and also going ahead with an architectural plan. That money's already there. Using the TIF fund dollars, one-time dollars for this, it seems to me we should make this whole. This has been what, Matt, 6 years, 5 years?
5.
5, that this temporary solution has been like this. So I guess I would be in favor of moving forward with this as rapidly as possible.
I guess I would want to solicit for AE services before we went on with current designs, so that we actually had whatever AE firm we were actually choosing doing the design.
Yeah, it's got to go, yes.
And we believe there's, I've been involved with architect engineering selection processes before, and I'm sure Sue has as well, and Randy. But from the standpoint of if we had that direction, even without formal action tonight, if we could at least have the authority to start soliciting RFPs on architectural, it would save us a 2-week time frame. Moving that along with the understanding that we are under no obligation if we're simply soliciting proposals at this stage, but being just time conscious. I think, in my experience, has been that, frankly, when you do RFP for architects, you have the greater chance of getting a really nice, creative, potential solution that may not be thought of because the firms would be competing for trying to have a design that fit the setting, fit the present needs, and with its expandability. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the district to explore that and have some choices with architectural engineering services.
For myself, I've got one issue with this, and that is the use of fund balance. I actually, I'm in favor of this. I was the one who came up with the idea. I wanted to do this using these TIF funds, but I had no intention when I initially brought it forward of spending the money before it was safely in our coffers. And that is probably the one big sticking point I have of being in favor of this, is that with the money so close at hand, it's not like it's still 20 years away. We're only talking about a few years before it's actually all in our pocket. Why would we jump the gun and do something without knowing that it's a bird in the hand? We're not talking about hundreds of years in the future, or even 5 years in the future. We're only talking about a 3-year period before this is all safely in our coffers from these from number 8 and from the 2 TIFs. And in my mind, I guess I would prefer to wait until the money is safely in hand before we started spending it. Besides which, I guess, as it is, we're spending down or at least we have proposed, and this board has voted to spend down the fund balance in next year, or this year certainly, and possibly in the next 3 years, at $1 million apiece. So the monies that I was thinking, were coming in from this TIF fund, wouldn't have to go to something like rebuilding our fund balance. Well, if we're spending down the fund balance for one thing, these TIF monies might have to go in just to bring our fund balance up to a level where we're not getting slapped by Moody's again and ending up paying larger interest rates. Obviously, as our budget continues to expand every year as needed, our fund balance is quite possibly going to be as low as 9% by the time we're looking at doing this, as opposed to the relatively healthy 15 that we have now. John.
I have been waiting 5 years for this already. I am so excited about this. I mean, I'm not going to quibble about details. You guys figure out if you want a 3-track or a 2-track school. I'll support it either way. But, as far as what Mr. Wiedenhoff is saying, people borrow money to buy things all the time. I didn't save up to buy a house. I borrowed the money because I wanted the house now, not 30 years from now. I buy cars. I don't save up money for 5 years to buy a car. I put a down payment on it, buy the car, and pay it off. We're in a position to borrow money from ourselves, so we don't even have to worry about interest. We can borrow money from ourselves, and we know we can pay it back, most of it anyways, from the TIF. I'm for going for it. Do it. Just do it. We've been talking about this. We've been waiting for this. It's time to act.
Kelly?
I know what the logical thing to do is what you're saying. And then I know what the right thing to do is, and that's to get these kids to school. And it's been way too long. This was an issue on the table when I came onto the board, and nothing's been done. time to do the right thing.
Steve?
Just counter too with part of your concern, Matt, and certainly I understand what you're saying there. I mean, it is the more prudent thing to do. But I wonder, I mean, there was a report in the paper the other day about how housing industry is starting to come back, which would indicate somewhat that inflation is going to be coming back, because it usually traditionally and historically follows that. How much do we lose in construction costs if we wait 3 years versus doing this now? How much do we lose in reduced transportation costs by not doing this now versus doing it later? I guess I would like to see those figures weighed in there as well. Because if it is substantial on construction costs, if you have 10-15% more in construction costs, or if you can save $20,000 or whatever on transportation, which I believe is our third largest expense in our budget, maybe it's more prudent to do that. That's just me saying. But
I guess if our fund balance hits 9% and we end up having to dip into it as we did in 2008, then suddenly you're going to be, possibly depending upon what the need might be and what happens, you could find yourself at 6% or 3%, and I see that I understand why people want to do it. As I said, I actually brought the idea forward in the first place. I just knowing that fund balance is being dipped into already, and knowing that we're not sure what it's going to look like in the future, that is my one concern. That's the one piece of this that I would prefer to wait on. And you're right. I mean, do I know what inflationary rates will be in the next few years? No. Could we end up paying more for this building if we waited a year or two? Certainly. Construction costs go up. Even in 2008, when everything came to a halt, construction costs, we saw a little bit of a reprieve there, but other than that, they continue to rise. But I'd hate to see us sitting here in a couple of years scratching our heads over what we're going to do to come up with the money because something has gone wrong somewhere else, and we suddenly have to bail it out, and we don't have a fund balance to dip into.
Sue, do we get one of the TIFs retired this year, correct?
Well, the 13-14 year, we got just the one for 311.
Right.
I believe the next one is in 14-15, and the following one isn't until 15-16.
Right. And the last
so you wouldn't
one
even have the money until 15-16, which means you probably wouldn't build until 16-17 for open in 17-18.
Oh.
Well, except if we're using the money from the sale of Green Meadow to
150.
Do the AE services, you'd be ready to break ground as soon as you had the cash. So you wouldn't start your AE services now, or I mean, you wouldn't start your AE services upon receipt of the TIF. I was just trying to look up.
My point is that we would have, I believe, a little over a third of that TIF money back in fund balance in 14-15, correct?
That's my understanding. I wrote myself a note to confirm that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it down as TIF number 6 closing this year, number 8 closing in 2014, number 9 closing in 2015. And those are the two that we're talking about, are 8 and 9.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing to think about is the fact that we lose families by not addressing this issue. We lose children by not addressing this issue, and I wonder how many more we'll lose if we don't address this issue. And then I think, okay, I wonder how many students and families we might get back by addressing this issue and building them a school out there. So that's, I think, another consideration.
Along those lines, I think it would be helpful to have data on the number of school-aged children in the Lakeside Green Meadow area, and how many of them are either homeschooled, attending private schools, or have opted to go to other school districts, or have open enrolled in other schools within the system. So we have an understanding of what is the potential population that we might gain back if we were to move forward with this, which might influence then how many sections are built.
That's part of the survey you're taking.
That's part of the survey that's being done, so that's why we're collecting. It just won't be ready by the 27th of this month.
Okay.
Allison?
Well, I can comment that back in 2010 and before I ran for the board, we did ask for those numbers, and we asked for how many students from the Lakeside Green Meadow School were we losing to other in-school or in-district schools, and how many we were losing to private and out-of-district schools. And my memory, if I'm correct, was that 25% of the kids that should be going to the Lakeside Green Meadow schools do not go there. And if we take 25% of, I don't know, let's just use 200 so we can do the math, that's 50 kids. And that's a lot of dough. And I wonder, you know, maybe 400 grand, maybe $500,000 of revenues. And would that change the way that we look at our fund balance? If we, and I do not think that the families that we have chased off will ever come back. I want to say that publicly. We have angered them so much that they'll never come back. However, if we don't do something, things will continue to get worse. So maybe we can turn the tide. Maybe we can stop the outflow. I believe that this school attendance area has the highest exodus of students. And that affects our revenues. And our revenues affect the way we think about our fund balance. So, that's the biggest point. The second point that I would like to address tonight is, what is the likelihood that we're not going to get the TIF funds? Are we talking 50-50?
No.
Or 90-10?
It's 95-5.
Okay, so what is the fear of spending the money today, knowing that we have a 95% chance we're going to get that money next year? This isn't even necessarily borrowing. I wouldn't even consider this borrowing. But I'm sorry. Go ahead and answer.
Well, as I said, the idea that number one, it's not in hand. Yeah, you know, it's not guaranteed. Basically, I mean, it's money, it's revenues that you're generating. And so assuming that nothing changes between now and then, you will generate those tax revenues. So, you know, is it likely? Yeah, it's extremely likely. It's very unlikely that it would not come about. But again, we've already basically, I feel like we're spending the money twice, I guess. I feel like we've already said, okay, we're going to be taking out, you know, $1 million a year from fund balance for the next 3 years. But then this money that comes in, which I, you know, had planned to spend on this, isn't going to replenish the fund balance. We're going to spend it as well. And in fact, we're going to spend it in advance of it coming in as well. And you are going to see a very low fund balance. And the possibility that unforeseen circumstances would necessitate a use of fund balance are probably what concerns me the most.
So
that I guess, in using it twice, I feel like, okay, well, we're using it and then we're using it again.
So it's basically our fund balance level and dipping pretty darn close to our minimum threshold versus
below our minimum
versus enrollment. These are the two competing factors. Would you agree with that at least?
I hadn't really considered the possibility that enrollment generating potential would, again, you know, you're not assured that you would have it.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I do know.
It would be great.
But we do know what happens when we jerk this community around. we've got the data. We got 5 years of data. So we can say what happens if we do nothing.
And I guess I don't consider, I mean, as I said, you know, if we put forth this plan and we say, yes, we're going to do this, I don't consider that jerking somebody around. The only difference is that instead of building it tomorrow, you're building it a year later. Basically, instead of building it for the to open in 2015, you're building it to open in 2016.
Kids are there for 5 years. A year's a quarter of their time there. It is a big deal. I don't. To you, it's not. But you're not. You know, you don't have a kindergartner. You don't have a fourth grader there. So to them, it is. We've got the data. We know if we don't do it, we will continue the exodus. If we do something, we might turn the tide. I don't know. But we know if we do nothing.
Transportation costs.
And we have the transportation.
Yeah. And we'll save on construction costs.
Maybe.
Randy.
If I put my facility director hat back on and look at that building, I look at a boiler, an old steam boiler that controls, one single boiler controls over half that building. It's well beyond its useful life. If that goes down, we're going to be doing a temporary fix on it or relocating the students at that time, creating another issue for the school district. But it's also going to be a temporary fix if we're going to do an addition at a future time, but that would be kind of throwing money away also. So I guess just looking at the facility needs, neither one of the boiler plants are in great shape. The hot water is much better than the steam, but the steam plant is...
And we've not replaced it because we didn't know if we were ever going to keep that school open. That's another dirty fact.
So just looking at the facility end of it, that's quite a concern of mine.
But I guess if we proceed, you're talking about going from community involvement and community input to the start of construction in March, April, May, in 6 months.
It's aggressive, but it can be done. We did it with Oaklawn. That was very aggressive also.
Other comments?
So I assume we can go forward with an RFP to look at architectural services, at least take that next step.
For sure.
And we will bring this back. It's clear we have a divided board on the issue, and I will bring it back as an actionable item for the 27th for giving us specific directions.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do you have the direction you need, then?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. All right, Sue, you're going to stay put, I assume.
Yes, I am.
Next item is 2014-15 budget reconciliation.
I can stay in the little kid chair.
Sue will lead us through the pieces. She's going to be joined by her colleagues who have coordinated this. We actually have two. Yes, I think we have actually two members of the committee who were also here in the audience this evening that are part of this. Just as a reminder for, I'm sure the board knows this, but for our audience at home, during the past week, we had 3 nights of meetings with a group of staff and citizens, parents, gathering input on a list of, none of them are good budget reductions. I haven't seen one yet. Actually, I haven't seen a good budget reduction here in the district yet, other than maybe transportation savings, and even that one turned out to be a little bit of a nightmare. But from the standpoint of dealing with a list of budget reductions, we worked with a group on the introductory evening. Sue presented finance, school finance 1001 to all members present. We began a process of beginning discussions and collecting from them lots of questions that they had in addition to those that we anticipated. We worked through that process. We then went to a second night session, that being last Thursday night, where the beginning work began of prioritizing, identifying, clarifying issues, looking at last year's budget reductions and restorations. And then we proceeded with leaving kind of incomplete the work on the Thursday night. And then on Monday night of this week, the committee continued its work and developed a series of identified budget reduction priorities, which were then distributed to the board late yesterday afternoon, distributed back to our principals and the members of our committee last evening. And then we today went out and the executive team divided up, but we of course didn't have enough to get to all buildings, but we were partners with principals in a number of buildings across the district to also get a sense of helping our staff to understand what was happening with the process. I can tell you that that effort of putting together a guidance and a script for our principals to work with our staff has resulted in what we have this evening, an audience that is not panicked by the issue, but understands that that's part of the process we need to work through in light of the entire list potentially being muted by a successful referendum. Our staff know and understand that this year is considerably different than last year when we had no choices but to bring forward to you without question the $3.5 million worth of cuts, $3.4 million worth of cuts last year. What we worked with our staff on understanding is that this time around we need to seriously look at a list of budget reduction items, prioritize them, but recognizing that unlike last year, we have I refer to it as a pressure relief valve. We can undo what all our work is by our working hard together on a successful referendum plan for the community. That process underway, and to me, I'm just reflecting on the fact that we did the right thing with clear communication with our staff, who know and understand what this process is all about, and recognizing that there is nothing good on the list. We told them that the board didn't like any of the items on the list. We didn't like any items on the list, but we needed to generate a list that made the most sense and kept us legally compliant into next year if the worst case scenario happened of a loss of a referendum. And our intent is, in the end, there are a few items that were added in that could take us out of compliance. We'll be presenting to you the information tonight. You'll be asking us clarifying questions relating to it, and then we will also prepare for the second meeting of the month an administrative recommendation regarding all the input we received both from you and from the greater community through the process. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue.
Okay, I really was going to go through the list because I figured you have it in front of you and you can read it, so I thought we would just open it up to questions and Stan kind of explain the process we've gone through.
Received an email today concerning the driver's ed portion of this. Was that correct, that this will actually be a loss of money, of revenue, if we close this?
Well, his comments were very legitimate. The program is self-sufficient. We've taken enough revenue to cover the full cost of the program. I guess the rationale behind this was the thought that possibly the space could then be rented out. So I'm a little apprehensive about that number. Not that I don't support it or not support it. I don't have any rationale to base the fact that if we didn't offer driver's ed and we could rent that space out to a private vendor, if that's really the money that we would get. The other point that he made, I thought that was very good, is kids are now taking driver's ed in the classroom. That frees them up to take something else. So now you've all of a sudden lost all the revenue, but now your kids are in classes that we may or may not have to add FTE because those kids are taking other classes. So it was a very legitimate point.
You don't think that removing driver's ed is a good idea?
I guess I just couldn't guarantee it would generate that kind of revenue.
And I would expect that with the amount of commercial space that's available in the community, that at a lower cost and less well-defined space, that any vendor of that service may find it more convenient to work somewhere else. And they wouldn't be under any obligation to rent from us.
Would those drivers that cost more money versus what we have to pay now to take the course?
I can't answer that. We charge a fee of $297 now. I don't know what private vendors charge right off the top of my head.
Typically, they usually charge more, so I think that a lot of students do take it in school because of that cheaper cost. even though it's not exactly cheap, I guess, but it's less expensive than going through someone private kind of thing.
To add on that also, I think a lot of students also take it. I mean, the majority base that I've seen have been because simply the easiness. Like I always take full years of band. I just took off like a quarter for driver's ed, and then it's like a study hall for the remaining. So it's much easy to fit in a schedule just to get it done with. So
And because it's during school, it doesn't take away from like after school extracurricular kind of things, which is even in summer classes when they offer it, it's huge to take away from like our athletes or just anybody who's involved in school. So I think that would be another thing to like look into.
Where is the list in here?
It's in her email. She emailed it to us today.
Oh, I checked my email fairly late. Okay. I must have missed it.
Would you like a hard copy?
If you've got one on you, yeah. that'd be great.
I'm going to forward it to you too right now.
Thanks.
I was a little confused by the rubric. Maybe you can help me with that.
Well, part of our concern, last year we just rated things like 1 through 6. And because everything on this list is so ugly, for lack of a better word, we were afraid everybody would rank it at 5 and 6, and we really wouldn't have a way of saying, okay, everything is 6, everything is horrible.
Okay.
So we decided that we needed to make the rubric a little more complicated so that people thought about each option a little bit.
Okay.
And then as we got into our groups, each group as they started to discuss were like, they were debating a little bit and getting really caught up in the rubric. And so our communication that we sent out to them is that some of our groups and some other people had expressed some concerns about the rubric or the ranking system. But the bottom line is each group, their discussions and how they decided to rank or prioritize or a very, very difficult task is fine, but as long as they had a process and they were consistent within their group how they decided to rank it, we were fine with that. Because once again, it was giving them a place to start because we really felt like they needed a process, but if as a group they came to a consensus, we were fine with that.
I guess my struggle was with the scale of 1 to 9 within the cells, but then above that, the 1 through 4.
The 1 through 9 was so each member in the group, there was 9 people
members in the
each
group.
Oh,
and so
okay.
they each got to give it a
All right.
score so they
Thank
could be
you.
independent from each other.
Right. And then they could do a little math within the matrix.
Well, everyday math.
So we didn't make everyone in the group agree. They could disagree within their group, and we just averaged then what that group
Okay,
decided.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Can you explain the Ford track going to, on this $1.7 million suggested cut here? How is that different than going from the 6 to 7?
Well, I can explain that a little bit more. The conversation is that one of the proposed cuts was that teachers, instead of having a teaching load of 5 courses out of 7, would teach 6 out of 7. And so one of the groups started to have the discussion is that, okay, if we are going to increase the teaching load, how could that teaching load maybe increase the teaching load and still have some time in the day and make it maybe a little bit more palatable, a little bit more easier, have more time within the day, or reorganize it. So I think the phrase that's in there is a 4x4, and so what that means is going to a block schedule where you would have 4 90-minute classes per day, and going to a true 4x4, that means a full year course would be done in 1 semester, and so a student would be able to take 8 full courses within a year. And you could either do that by a 4x4, or you could do that in an A-B block schedule. And I'm probably throwing a lot of jargon out that you're going, we have no idea what it is. But it's a different,
every other day.
Every other day. It's a different schedule configuration. And so we talked about that, and either way, it would increase the teaching, whether you did it within an 8 period or whether you did it in a 7 period, it would increase what we're seeing in that budget line item would be increasing the teaching load for secondary teachers. And so one would be within one configuration of the day schedule, the other would be in our current configuration.
But it sounds like that they actually get more prep time under the 4x4 concept?
It would be like there would be a 90-minute, yes, they would have a 90-minute block of time during the day.
Mr. Mack, when I talked to you about that, didn't you indicate that you didn't think the 4x4 was really a workable
Many,
schedule.
many school districts that have had 4x4 have gone away from it because it was not affordable. The nuance that they're proposing on that was an additional assignment, that additional teaching assignment. But the typical 4x4 is more expensive than our present schedule.
Yeah.
And that was one that we have not fully costed out, but we do believe that it unless there is modification to it, it would cost more to deliver.
So if it would cost more to deliver, why are we looking at the 4x4 as opposed to just the straight 6 out of 7?
That
which we
is
were talking about earlier?
that is an item that came right out of the budget reconciliation team, and so that's why you see that right on the.
We gave you everything that came up.
Right.
Is the 6 out of 7 by itself in here?
Yes, if you go further down into the list, the 6 out of 7 is in there. You need to keep in mind that probably approximately 8 years ago, when we were going through 612 restructuring, we looked at many different schedules, and you need to keep in mind that the 7-period day is run in many school districts because it is the most efficient and economical way to be running a secondary school when you look at the 7-period day.
Okay, I see it there.
How many schools do 6 out of 7? How many districts do that?
Not a lot.
Okay.
There are several districts within the region that, or not several, but 2 to 3 that did do that. Reports that we're getting back is that they're going back to the 5 out of 7 teaching load.
Who was that? Wasn't
one of them was
Kakana
Kakana was one, and I believe Oconomowoc was
and
the other one.
Kakana is one of the ones that's going back.
Correct.
They did it for 2 years or 3 years, something like that.
I don't recall. It
And
was
now
2
they're-
years.
Now they're going from 6 out of 7 back to 5
Back
out
to
of 7.
5 out of 7 teaching load.
Going
Correct.
back to the 4x4, the person who brought that up said that it would save money if you don't make kids take all 4 blocks. So if a student only had to take 3 out of the 4 blocks, then it technically would save money according to the person that proposed it. But then, of course, then you're warehousing kids for 90 minutes a day in a
Doing nothing.
in a study hall.
Boy.
Emma?
I think that asking students to focus for 90 minutes on the same subject can be kind of heavy. I do think that at one point I was in a kind of class where it was longer than the general 50 minutes. And if it's kind of like harder subjects, like your CAP classes now that we're in, or just your general math class, like that would get pretty long if I had to sit through math. And I think that's kind of one thing that like you could take into consideration, that I know that it's a lot of it is to do with cutting the budgets for the teachers to work the 6-7 or 5-7, but I really think that asking a student to sit for 90 minutes repeatedly out throughout the day is a lot to ask of a kid who's, antsy or anything like that. So,
If I can comment on that, in longer instructional blocks can work, but the instructor or the teacher really has to concentrate on their instructional strategies and how they structure instruction during that 90-minute time, because if you are not really active learning or doing things that are going to engage students, you are absolutely correct that 90 minutes is a very long
it's like a 90 minute study hall, like
Correct.
you said. That's
And,
kind of
and
what
that
we're
would be
trying to
one
do.
thing that is, I would have a really hard time recommending that going into the fall of 2014, because the preparation that we would need to get secondary teachers ready to make that 90 minutes of instruction meaningful would take a little bit longer than from the summer and be ready on September 2nd.
And I know from the experiences going back and forth, and when the gray hair kicks in of all the years of past experience, I can tell you that there are many teachers who the reprogramming from knowing how to run a 50-minute or 55-minute class to switch over to 90, the good use of the rest of that 35 minutes, it was a disaster. And teachers to reprogram themselves, it's a real, in an ideal world, it sounds wonderful, but it's exactly as Julie is explaining, being able to retrain teachers to handle that time well and to maximize, remembering that, on a block schedule, you're effectively bringing a full credit's worth of a course into a 1 semester worth of work. And that means you have to be on really high-speed productivity in order to meet all the requirements that are components of that course.
Right, and let me also clarify this before this is brought up. Somebody is going to comment that, well, currently we have our elementary students doing 75 minutes of math or 150 minutes of literacy. Just please remember that our elementary pedagogy and the way that we have set up our comprehensive literacy model and our math instruction, our teachers are trained to do that and instruct in that time. Our secondary teachers would absolutely need professional development to deliver in that model. So, Steve.
I guess the reason that I was interested in this, and I understand all the myriad of reasons why that this can never work, but as we've indicated before, every option on this list suck.
Yes.
So, that being said, $1.7 million to try to do something that we could potentially save by restructuring and professional development, that equals, from what I can add up here, that first 12 items. So we can either cut the other 12 items or we can do this. I'm just saying that if you're going to, what is it, Niccolo Machiavelli, correct? I mean, if you really want to upset somebody, just keep poking at them. And if we're going to sit there and use the other 12 points to really provoke, where it's going to stink. That's why I'm not saying I'm supportive of this. I'm just saying that if we're supposed to actually come to a solution on this through the Budget Reconciliation Committee and their work, then we're going to have to look at making these terrible decisions. Well, I'm going to hurt 12 different departments and 12 different programs, or do I want to just have it hurt in one area?
I have a question about gifted and talented.
Some comment on that.
Oh, okay. Basically, I thought we were required by law to have GT programs.
We have to have a coordinator for the program, but we do not have to have GT people servicing them. But one of the things that you'll see in the impact statement with the GT is that they are not just GT teachers. They are our math recovery specialists, and they are our professional development within the group. And so they get paid out in Title I and Title II funds. The GT is like a 0.5 or a 0.1 that adds to their position so that they are in a building, either full-time or between two buildings. They are also helping with the whole RTI as we go into SLD rule. And if that was put into effect, I'm not sure how we would meet what we need to do for the RTI criteria.
Okay, so you're not sure basically that this is that X is an actionable item at the moment.
I don't know how that would be an actionable item as we go forward with what we need to put into place for RTI.
Well, going back to the other thing, block scheduling wouldn't be impossible.
Correct.
But I think you're right. It takes some preparation. Many, many, many years ago, I taught in block scheduling. This isn't new.
No.
And I wasn't sure, thinking back on it, who was harder on the teachers or the students. And I think it depended a little bit on the teachers. I mean, I took the block of time and chunked it up and did much different things within those chunks, and that helped. And, I was smart enough at that time to just have the students say, hey, we're sick of this chunk now, let's move on to the next one, and it kind of worked. But there are other teachers, and they never prepared us for this. There are other teachers who just lectured for the whole time. And students would just get up and wander out of his room and come and sit and talk with me for a while. And then they go back in and take some more notes. I mean, that's how it can be. So.
And that's how it could be without proper preparation.
Exactly, that's what I mean. That's how it could be without proper preparation.
Yeah, just keep in mind that was an idea that came out of one of the groups. It hasn't been, that only came out of one of the groups just recently, and so it would take a lot to vet through and say, would that actually be a $1.7 million savings? So.
The issue in being faithful to the committee and the group is that we provided you everything they said, and so that you understand that in the turnaround we weren't going to censor or deal with it. We professionally need to deal with that, but wanted to be sure that we were fully cognizant of the fact that we have dedicated folks who spent 6, 8, 9 hours with us, and they deserve to have at least surface at this stage.
Actually, I guess one that I've heard. Oh, I'm sorry, David.
Nope, that's okay. So I just for a really quick clarification, I was just wondering to expand on the point of like more the the rise of the UW AP classes. I was just wondering how in a block schedule, because they kind of get like a college format of read, lecture, and like kind of engaging. I was wondering if the training incorporating into that, because if let's say if we were to do that, would the training for those advanced classes would that fall under a specific category?
That's a really good question, and that would be one thing that would have to be vetted out. And we would have to talk with our UW liaisons and say, how would this work if we change that schedule? So that would be like one of like a list of like 50 things that start to come to mind that we would have to prep in order to be able to implement that.
Okay.
Because we would have to, our UWO liaison for the CAP class would have to be okay with the format, and we would have to get all of that approved. So that would be a big question.
David, at the university, we're trying to get away from that read, lecture, and I think if you go to UWO and get into the USB courses, you're going to find it's much different than that.
All right, yeah, my mom's a professor there.
Actually, one that I don't see on here, which I've heard expressed at least once, is soliciting bids for the rights to broadcast our local sports games. Right now, we open that up to everybody, but just like anybody else, local games, we could actually solicit bids from those who broadcast it, and give the rights to whoever is the high bidder.
Still advertising?
And as Big Ten universities have now done, is they basically form their own network and then sell the services that way, including now owning commercials.
Barb?
There were two things that struck me as I looked over materials for tonight. And as Mr. Dito eloquently said, nothing on here is a good option. Many years ago, when I was an undergraduate at the university studying to become a social studies teacher, there was a relatively new program at that time called the Harvard Project, and the Harvard Project consisted of a series of small booklets which students would read, and then they would typically form discussion groups because they were often presented with two things that were not equally attractive. In fact, they were probably both very unattractive. And one I remember specifically was Helga's Dilemma, and I feel we're in Helga's Dilemma here because nothing here is palatable. So I'm trying to balance that with some reading I've done recently on the role of school boards in governance, and that one phrase that kept popping out at me was, school board members need to be concerned with student achievement. So I look at some of these with the student achievement and the Helga's Dilemma frame of mind. And I see things like eliminate music teacher stipend for the holiday concert, increase high school music teaching load, change art and music to semester-only classes. And I don't see those as compatible with an agenda focusing on student achievement. Another thing that strikes me in terms of reducing the number of teachers is that we have a number one strategic goal which focuses on helping teachers feel valued and respected. And when you start looking, when we start looking at cutting someone who's prepared in an academic discipline, there are reasons why the state licenses people to do specific things. When I was an elementary teacher many years ago at Dale School, when that was still an elementary school, that's where I started my career as a student. had a big wide hallway, and the kindergarten room was on the right-hand side as you entered. On the left-hand side, their AV was very different than it is today, so we got the Wisconsin School Music of the Air because they played the radio in the room across the hall loud enough so we could hear it in the kindergarten room. So that was my introduction to music education. That plus the music teacher who would push that upright piano in and out of the room. She was constantly running around with that room. We've gained a lot, and I think these students would attest that music education would be very different if we didn't have trained music teachers. There used to be a time when when elementary teachers had to learn how to play the piano or at least the guitar so that they could play for their students and introduce music that way. That's no longer true. And this district has had a very long and proud history of excellent music educators and art educators and Phi Ed educators, for that matter. And to lose that in terms of student learning, just it's a Helga's dilemma for me. I can't quite support that.
And if I may add on that, I think the board and everyone should be proud because Oshkosh West is like ranked. Like we play with UW music and they come to us and stuff. So with West, it's almost like I'm proud that you brought that up because I'm part of something that like every day when that class we would talk about how like we like represent the city and it's just like wonderful to be that. And like Mr. Singer, our director, not only says like with music, but like striving for excellence and being prepared, like don't procrastinate, stuff like that. So, I mean, I see those elements in various myriad different situations that I learned from the music department, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Believe in it.
And the nightmare we face is that we have, by all the kind of cutting around the edges that we've done for so long, I've told every group now that we've presented to is we're about 10 to 12 years late in this action that we're dealing with the referendum, that we have run ourselves to the course where the draconian type issues that we face are there that are a true nightmare because and communicating that message of how draconian those cuts are and how the impact on every child in this district will be felt by this is so extreme that we are in the position of what I remember Helga's dilemma.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, and that is it's nice to have someone with the same vintage, you know.
I appreciate it too.
and that is exactly what I've thought of through this process. It is just and as we talk through the process of communicating that message out in the community, that we are this process, as I've said to our executive team and to our principals, that we can only play the cards we're dealt, and unfortunately we're dealt the cards here right now that make us feel like we're on the edge of a major cavity that we can fall off of, and as we approach dealing with this, there is no joy, only the joy in seeing affirming faces as you're presenting the facts regarding the referendum. First the shock, and then the solution, because that's really the process. Because the audiences we've talked to are just plainly amazed at the level of underfunding the district is in, and how we've drifted over the years since 1992 into the position that we are today. And that I think all of you have expressed it right down. Our principals have been magnificent in dealing with the issue as they've provided input to us, our executive team, and handling all of the parts regarding the budget reconciliation. But then our citizen parents and staff members who have sat there through that misery of looking at what are the choices we can do that are possible and legal. And from that point on, there is no good news. It's just mud. It really is. And I think Steve's description of it is very eloquent. It's true.
I guess for me, and I agree, Barbara, 100%. I mean, obviously music's a big part, and art is a big part of my life currently. I guess the way that I was taught and from what I've learned on my own is if we go through all of these and it adds up to $2.5 million, so we can enact 2 or 3 that are going to be terrible, like closing a middle school and going to the 6th and 7th, we're already over $2 million. Instead of going to the $5,000 and get rid of the band and teachers stipend for the Christmas concerts and the having all art and Phi-Ed be taught by teachers. I mean, it's, I hate to say it that way, but we're at $2 million then. And if we really need to get to $2.5 million, we all understand the importance of how that this, the weight, the gravity of this referendum. And I guess that would you guys come back for myself with this later on a recommendation? Number one, I would like to actually have some valid data on what is going to work and what isn't going to work, because there's all the reasons why this isn't going to work, but it's still on the list that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And if we're not going to save $1.7 million, then we need to know that. You know, I mean, there's going to be things that happen, like with the transportation debacle that we had at this. We got through it, and we did save some money, not quite as much. But if you guys would please, if there's things on here that absolutely aren't going to work, if there are other districts that were going to 6 and 7 and now are going back, I would like to see the data on who those districts were, why that they went back, that kind of stuff. If you could incorporate that in, that would be awesome.
Yep.
And we recognize that as our task between in the coming week as we deal with it. With the turnaround time we had with getting the information to you, there would have been no integrity and respect for all the folks who put time in, who put things on the table, if we didn't share everything with you to make sure that you had it. And we would intend to do that and have that ready for you a week from Friday.
The goats thing isn't on here this year.
No goats. Yeah,
Bring back the goats.
yes.
Well, I'll add that too. Can you add that, Sue? You won't need them if we stay in the vortex.
Yes.
Just 2 other thoughts. I went through this entire long document of, I don't know, 60-some pages and found it to be very interesting. The section that goes into individual school budgets, I made some notes on those, and then I took the September 3rd Friday count. I couldn't find the January one, but that was okay because the numbers are going to be somewhat close. And I found that the elementary school with the largest budget actually has the 5th largest enrollment. And I found that an elementary school with an enrollment around 270 is within $1,000 of schools that have approximately 100 students less. So there seems to be an equity issue in terms of distribution of at least elementary school budgets, and the smallest middle school actually had the 2nd largest budget of the middle schools. And there may be reasons for that, but when you just look at the number and the school, those don't necessarily jump out. So
They include carryover dollars. So if a school, so we ran those reports after carryover was added back in.
That would make sense.
So we could look at running those reports before carryover, but carryover was added back in. Plus the reports it's a formula based on every school gets a foundation amount and then a per pupil amount on top of
what
it.
I thought.
And it was based on last September, and we don't adjust it with the new enrollment.
Okay.
So I don't know how much swing in enrollment there was, but I think the biggest reason would be the carryover.
Okay, I didn't realize that was in there. Thank you. And then, as I was going through this myriad of pages, I looked at big numbers. One of my college professors said every number is interesting, and they are. They're all interesting, but it helps to try to put them in perspective. And one of the things I found was that many of these budget categories, no matter which way you presented it, and I think you presented it at least 3 different ways, which I appreciated as well. But one of the budget items that jumped out at me was the 310s, the purchase services. There are a lot of dollars in purchase services. And again, it's a Helga's dilemma. So I don't know if this is any more palatable or feasible than anything we were presented with, but might it be possible to reduce purchase services, for example, 10%, however administration would choose to look at that, whether that were across the board or if there were some areas where perhaps, for example, the district I know has done some wonderful professional development over the years with a consultant out of Colorado, but now that work is done in-house. Are we at a point with some consultants where the work can be done in-house rather than continuing to hire?
Actually, purchase services was on our list last year for reductions.
Oh.
It was
$175,000, but we never
We ended up
realized.
reducing it over 100,000
Okay.
last year. I mean, it's definitely something we can always be looking at, but 310s is also more than just consultants. Sometimes a service actually saves us money by buying an outside service than doing it in-house. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't keep an eye on it, but we did look at that really closely.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that clarification.
And because it's such a large number within a scale, the number of services, we couldn't afford generally the services that we're buying, and because they're unique and short term, in order to recruit and find the right person to do the job, it becomes a very inefficient function as well.
Anything else with regard to this? Mr. Mack, could you ask?
Just in summary, I could have predicted, and I reflect upon, as equally dismayed as all of you are with the list, we are equally dismayed with what we were facing, but we will come back to you with a list that makes the number. I should share with you that as we are doing referendum presentations during the interim and before your final action, we have entered some examples of what could be cut, and we reflect them that they're not final action, but people need to have content to what $2.5 million really means. And we did so today with the League of Women Voters presentation. We did in this afternoon's presentation at South Park Middle School, and we will need to continue to do that, but we will flip after the 27th that these have been the actual cuts, but in the meantime we are going to be using examples because that probably has been the weakest link in our communication, because people can't identify what $2.5 million is until you give some examples, and so that's how we're working on this process. So we thank you for your attention to it, and we commit to bring back a list that we see may be the best fit. There is no good fit.
I'd like to thank the Budget Reconciliation Committee, the citizenry that stepped forward too as well. I mean, this is not a pleasant task.
Does anyone see anything on this list, or does anyone see anything missing from this list that, from the board's perspective, they could add?
Where do sports lie within the budget? I guess I don't really understand that.
Sure. The extracurricular activities amount to just under $800,000, and there were discussions related to either shrinking that or reducing it or eliminating it. Frankly, right now, we have shared with the board previously that we have the lowest expenditure per pupil in those areas already, and our two activities directors, I think, spend 40% of their time courting donors to try to supplement those activities, and so yeah, they're among the possibilities. The issue that I think is, and I did share with the full committee, because there were some individuals not on the committee but others who have approached me in the community that suggested that we potentially look at putting all extracurricular activities as a cut, and then have them potentially restored by the referendum. I very clearly said I'm most fearful of that. First of all, I'm not a gambler, so I don't ever operate on that basis that we take that risk. The damage to the district in the long term is one that is of lots of families exiting because of that. And our activities directors point out to us that those who participate in extracurricular activities, including both athletics as well as the arts, have grade point averages well above the norm for student, and in that classification, we endanger losing our best and brightest students because they not only do school well, they do extra things well because that fulfills their days. So,
not that I'd ever want to see like sports cut, but it's kind of hard when it's an extracurricular and then you're looking to cut like music department, which is, I mean, you hear of more students going into like a music or arts after like high school, and you see them more like with jobs kind of thing versus how many people have gone into the NFL or the NBA kind of off of a sport. So I don't know. I think in that kind of situation, it kind of makes me sad that we want to cut something that is more of like an open opportunity in life versus something that you kind of just stop after high school or college, depending on who you are.
very eloquently said.
Yep. Do you guys have a copy of these cuts, right?
Large packet, yes.
Okay, good. So you guys should be seeing this too.
I looked through it.
But we thank you all for concentrating on this painful task, and thank you.
All right. Next, we move on to individually considered resolutions. Could I get a motion for the approval of tentative collective bargaining agreement? I guess you're the only one on the list. I have to read the. Approval of resolution number 1, be it resolved, the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve a 2% increase in total base wage for professional teaching staff for the 2013-14 school year as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, take the roll.
Herzog?
Yes.
Herzog, aye. Lemberger?
Aye.
Lemberger, aye. Saginac?
Aye.
Saginac, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Motion carried.
Future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they wish to see added to our list of future items, meeting topics? All right, then we'll go on to announcements. Steve?
I have a brief one.
Assuming you have one.
I do. I just wanted to let everyone know that our after-school skating club at Webster Stanley, Dr. Eric's Skate Club, has been a hit, though we were bumped back because of the cold last week. But NBC 26 is planning to cover the event tomorrow and broadcast, I assume, that same day. And on the heels of that, we are rolling out a Nordic ski program at Emmeline Cook School in about 2 weeks from now. So we'll continue to press on with outdoor winter activities.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else for announcements? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We'll call the roll.
Lemberger?
Aye.
Lemberger, aye. Saginac?
Aye.
Saginac, aye. Wiedenhoff?
Aye.
Wiedenhoff, aye. Vito?
Aye.
Vito, aye. Eliason?
Aye.
Eliason, aye. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Motion carried.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.